What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. Happy Wednesday as we are live here on Dsm Media's Philadelphia YouTube and Twitter channels. Guys, first and foremost, if you are watching on Twitter, we obviously appreciate you. Say this every show, but do us a favor. If you want to be interactive throughout today's show, make sure to head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. It's the only spot we can see your comments. It's the best spot to watch the show and be interactive with your host. I'm one half of them, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. The Phillies dominate the LA Dodgers in game one of a three-game set down at Citizens Bank Park last night by a score of 10-1. Zach Wheeler leaves the game with lower back tightness, but he is expected to start his next start. Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber return from the 10-day IL stint they went on as the Phillies stayed above water from the Atlanta Braves. Sixers Summer League standouts, Jared McCain, Justin Edwards, Adem Bona, Ricky Council IV. We're going to talk about all of them on today's show, Scotty. And also, why are people fueling the fire for Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason? We're going to talk about everything on this morning show, but subscribe to the YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate all of you. What's going on, my man?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Happy is it hump day yet? Yes, it is. Happy hump day, man. It's been a while since I got to say that, but yeah, it's a good morning here. Obviously, the Sixers coming off a tough summer league loss, but that doesn't really matter. The Titans took care of business nonetheless. So that's what really mattered last night, at least. So we'll get into all of that. And I thought you hit the nail on the head, man. We talked about it a little bit before the show started about the Birds and kind of where we're at with the Birds going into the season versus where it feels like the public or outside of Philadelphia is at. Even listening to the radio, some of Philadelphia fans still very skeptical of this team. And we can talk about if that, is correct to be that way or if that, is not as justified as some may think. So we'll get into all of that. But happy hump day, my man.
Thank you. You back at you, brother. I do want to start with that Eagles point real quick because a light bulb just went off in my mind. Okay.
Yeah, what's up?
Fellas, ladies, fellow Eagles fans, the public, whoever is down on this team, saying they're going to start 1-3 because of the coordinators, the schedule, whatever it is, talking about Jalen Hurts versus Dak Prescott for the 900th time over the last 3 years, talking about the secondary, talking about all of it as if the Eagles, shouldn't have our trust because of how last year ended. I'm going to tell you that it's fair. Like it's okay to see how Nick Sirianni ended last season, to see how Jalen Hurts struggled down the stretch and in that playoff game, to not know what these two coordinators are going to look like, what their schemes are going to look like. It's okay to be hesitant to be bought all the way in or predict that this team's going to be the best team in the NFC or get back to the Super Bowl, etc. But what are we doing? What are most of us doing right now with another team in Philly? That being the 76ers.
Yeah.
A team that has done nothing but disappoint us in the past, come up short in the past. A first-round exit just a few months ago to a rival up in New York. And they make some off-season moves, and we're all ready to be hurt again, myself included.
Yeah.
I'm on the Eagles' positivity train.
Yeah.
I don't understand, if you are one of those people, how you can almost forgive the Sixers' shortcomings because of what they've acquired roster-wise so far, and then look at the Eagles, remember the pain from the end of last year and that disappointment, but then not acknowledge the roster and go, well, I don't believe in them. Like these two organizations are not on the same playing field. They are not equal right now. The Eagles soar above the 76ers when it comes to expectations and winning in the recent future. So if there is a team you should be bought into, if there is a GM you should realistically believe in and what he's built roster-wise on paper, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. So I just wanted to get that out there real quick. Relax, and it's going to be a super fun year for the Birds.
Yeah, that's a very well said, in my opinion. You make a good point, especially with the Sixers, obviously breaking our hearts more recently, and a lot harder, obviously, each and every time. It stabs you right in the back. But the Eagles, they fell apart last year. It was it was more hurtful because it was so abnormal in a sense, right? Like
Correct.
we've never seen them do something like that. So it was like it was painful to watch that happen. But at the end of the day, I still have faith in the team that just went to the Super Bowl the year before. So yeah, I think as far as the Eagles, man, you look at some of the moves they made. I mean, it's obvious to me. I that's why I guess I think it is so crazy, and I don't think it's like justified to think that we went out there and went 10-1 through 11 games with rookie coordinators and Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, and yeah, it fell apart. They couldn't keep it together, and yeah, once other coaches started getting tape on what they were doing throughout the season, it started to get stopped, and the coordinators, the players, they couldn't make the adjustments needed to move forward, right? But you bring in two veteran coordinators. It's not like they brought in two brand new guys that have never called offense or defense before. You have Nick Sirianni giving the reins to Kellen Moore, so we're going to see some new things there, some new concepts, which I think is just going to be good in general for us against the rest of the league. I think a lot of what Nick Sirianni was implementing, even the year before with Shane Steichen, I think a lot of it was getting figured out. I think a lot of it was getting prepared for. And the more tape that's out there, the more defenses are going to be prepared for that. So looking at Kellen Moore coming in, I'm more excited than anything. I'm not worried. I'm more excited about that. And then on the defensive end, I don't understand how you could be any more down on the defense. Like the defense fucking sucked last year. Like the secondary was hot garbage, even with Kevin Byard at the trade deadline, right? So, like, looking at all the youth that comes in, take it for what it is, for one, like, to watch these guys grow and watch this be the future of the defense. But then also understand you did bring guys like CGJ in, Devin White from Tampa Bay, right, the linebacker. You brought in some veterans to kind of stabilize the weaker parts of the defense as well. So, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm a little more optimistic. I'm on the positivity train though. Like you said, like things are going great right now in Philadelphia, and I guess I'm just gonna choose to enjoy it as a fan.
I'll take it as far to say I'm past the positivity train. I am a believer that this might be the best roster in football. I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't know if people disagree. I don't know how Rudy's going to feel about that. But I will tell you, I am a believer that this might be the best roster in football. I don't know how you watched the end of last year, all the issues, Brian Johnson having to go from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia midseason. Nothing changes. Everything's a disaster.
Yeah.
The injuries on the offense, everything. And then you watch the masterclass that Howie Roseman puts on display this offseason. Well, let's go back to what the issues were. You want to go play calling. Okay, well, you get rid of Brian Johnson and you bring in Kellen Moore, who has been second in the league in points per game, just behind Patrick Mahomes when he was in Dallas. They led the league in passing multiple times in Dallas. He was middle of the pack, I believe, in LA with Herbert, who got injured, and we know their issues offensively. But when it just comes to talent and skill position players, but you fix that spot. Well, then you go, okay, well, the defense. Well, what's he do defensively? He goes out and he gets a guy out of here, and Hassan Reddick, who wanted money. We could talk about if that's the right move or not, but he brings in a young up-and-coming defensive end with 10 sacks and Bryce Huff, who just seems to be hitting his peak, right? You go out and you get a stabilizer like Devin White, a playmaker at the linebacker position. You go out, you bring C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. And then in the draft, he goes so far off his compass and not only selects one in the first round, but then trades up in the second round for two of the top three corners to help solidify this secondary in the NFL draft this past year. Yeah. I don't know what people expected or whatever else they needed to happen this offseason. Obviously, I didn't even mention the Saquon Barkley edition, paying a running back he hasn't done. Yeah. So to me, we talked about the top 10 offense list that came out by NFL Network a couple weeks ago, and how atrocious and preposterous that was. I think they're going to be one of the best offenses in the league. I think their secondary is going to be A-OK this year, and I think they'll get at the quarterback. I'm extremely high on this roster. I'm extremely high on this team this year. The schedule is obviously easier than it was last year, coming off a Super Bowl appearance. So yeah, man,
I think
I
that's
don't
something
really
that gets undersold as well. The schedule, right? The
yeah,
difference in the schedule, like not getting burnt out in those first 11, 12 games against the toughest competition in the NFL, like all in a row. I
right.
think that's going to be a huge difference as well. It is funny, the Saquon Barkley thing, because everybody just keeps, as soon as he gets to the Eagles, it's like Saquon Barkley is not a top running back anymore
Yeah,
because he's injury prone.
I know.
Okay, guys, like,
Right.
honestly,
Well,
going into last season, looking at our running back situation with DeAndre Swift, Kenny Gainwell, so on and so forth, Boston Scott, whatever. Was DeAndre Swift not injury prone coming to the Birds last year? Was that not what everybody was saying about DeAndre Swift as well? So to that
right.
point, how is it that all of a sudden you have people talking about like the number we paid Barkley compared to what Swift got, as if it's like an L for the Eagles to get Saquon Barkley over DeAndre Swift? I
Right.
mean, that's ridiculous. It's a significant upgrade. And my thought on it, honestly, is that if we could bring DeAndre Swift in, manage him rightfully, right? We kept him healthy all season. Didn't really miss a game. I think he might have sat out a game due to rest or precautionary reasons here or there. But from my remembrance, he did not miss a game last year. And then when I look at that situation, why can't they do that with Saquon with a better offensive line in front of him, a better overall offense where you don't have to just give him 30 carries a game or 30 touches a game through the through the pass and the ground? When I look at it from that instance, and then you bring in another dynamic back like Will Shipley, even the backfield, like it's grown so much just from that standpoint on offense. And to your point about the best roster in the NFL, I think on offense, there's like no argument against that. I don't care what anybody says about Jalen Hurts, about the offensive line without Jason Kelce, whatever your case may be. There is no way you look at an offense with Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, the dynamic weapon that he is.
Still a top
Even
five
if he played like last year, the dynamic weapon that he is.
Right.
Right? Let's cut the turnovers down a little bit.
Yeah.
Cut those interceptions down. Let's be real there. But the dynamic weapon that Jalen Hurts is, you insert a Cam Jurgens, a guy that has shown signs that he is going to be able to live up to, maybe not what Jason Kelce does, but he can be a quality starter.
Right.
And when you think about Jeff Stoutland, I mean, I don't understand that, right? The top 10 offense in the NFL, like falling out of the top 10. I think they are the number one, and I don't even think it's arguable, quite honestly, when you look at the balance across the offense. And then the defense, I think you take it to the defensive side. We're optimistic on it, right? And I think that's where the offense kind of balances out with the defense, where you can say, maybe this is the best roster in the NFL. For my money, it probably is, man. I just think when CGJ, when he has been here, he's played at a higher level. If he can do that with Vic Fangio, we will see, right? If he can bounce back at that level. But the cornerback position is just such a significant upgrade between the two rookies, having Keely Ringo another season in, and then obviously Isaiah Rodgers as well, who they get back from suspension, man. There's a ton of options. There's a ton of like versatility in that secondary. So that makes me highly confident. And then the linebacker position, quite honestly, man, it just can't get worse than last year. You bring in Devin White, it can't get worse, in my opinion.
No,
So I don't know. Let me ask you this. When it comes to the pass rush, no Hassan Reddick, is there any concern of a drop-off there? I think with my thought is that Jalen Carter is going to be significantly better. I expect him to develop. And then I look at guys like Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, maybe not to the same extent as Jalen Carter, because we think he's going to be a star, right? We think he's going to be a superstar. Jordan Davis, he can be a star, right? Like he can be a star, but will we see the growth from those guys? What are your thoughts there? Like as far as the pass rush as a whole, that defensive line? No Hassan Reddick.
Well, first of all, that's the thing that gets like misconstrued at the end of last year. Even with Hassan Reddick, dude, this defense and this pass rush specifically, was flawed. And
I
like
haven't
we
talked
talked,
football in a while.
I know it feels good, but we talked about Hassan Reddick wanting that payday, wanting that extension, toward in the beginning of the offseason. And we talked about how just when you watch guys like TJ Watt, like Max Crosby,
Yeah.
like Myles Garrett, even like a Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa, those guys, no matter who else is on their defensive line, no matter how bad their team is playing, those guys don't disappear. You see them, you hear their names called multiple times throughout 4 quarters of almost every single game, right? Hassan Reddick disappeared as well as everybody else disappeared in the last 5 or 6 weeks and the playoff game in Tampa Bay. Now, he was being misused. No one's disputing that. He's being dropped into coverage more than he ever had been in his career with Matt Patricia. No one's saying he was used perfectly and had all the opportunities to just put his hand in the ground and get after the quarterback. But at the end of the day, you didn't hear Hassan Reddick's name called for 4 or 5 weeks straight. And that's just not what guys that are going to make $20, $23 million as edge rushers do, especially an undersized edge rusher, which we know has been a problem of his, or has been something people have talked about with him since he stepped foot into the NFL. So it gets misconstrued that this pass rush is lacking something because Hassan Reddick specifically is gone. You bring in a guy like Bryce Huff, who's played on a very ferocious defensive front like the Jets the last couple of years. He's 24, 25 years old, just hitting his peak, coming off, I believe, right around a double-digit sack season and only expected to improve. Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, you talked about it. The middle of this defensive line has to feast. Why I think it'll be different is why I think the offense will be different. The coordinator. I mean, we could talk about, Hassan Reddick disappearing like I just did. We could talk about Jordan Davis being out of shape, Jalen Carter, falling off at the end of the year, whatever you want to say. You're not going to get after the quarterback when your defensive line has 2.5 seconds to get to him. Because your philosophy defensively and your secondary is 900 yards off the line of scrimmage, and it's just quick throw, quick throw, quick throw, quick throw. I'm a believer that Vic Fangio is going to fix this. Now, I know those guys were from the Vic Fangio tree, so he shares the same philosophy probably in a sense, but I don't think you're going to see anything as drastic as the off-ball coverage, lining up on the line of scrimmage type of stuff you've seen from these corners, from the secondary in years past. I think that gets fixed a little bit, and then in turn, I think that helps the defensive line, because no defensive line in NFL history is going to continuously get pressure on an opposing quarterback if they have a second and a half to get to him. It's not happening.
That's actually a great point. A great point. Just because the secondary, you can trust them a little bit more, right? Like at the end of the day, if our corners do make some mistakes, we have to hope that these young guys have the athleticism, the quickness to maybe get back and make up for the mistakes. Like maybe they can be, as 2 projected first-round picks, be good enough to make up ground, right? For mistakes, different things that happen. With a guy like James Bradberry, that is just not happening. I think the other thing with the secondary, man, is CGJ. I know we talked about him a little bit there, but just that Swiss Army knife, can move all around the defense, can be kind of a captain to that secondary, right? Like we looked at Darius Slay last year. He's not giving you the leadership. We looked at James Bradberry. He doesn't talk. He doesn't do anything. So you're not getting it there. Kevin Byard was, I don't know. He was worthless. Let's be honest when he came over. CGJ, we saw it when he was here. We saw it even with the Detroit Lions. He might not have been as impactful with the Detroit Lions, according to their fans. That's all I'm basing that off of, is the reception of CGJ by Detroit fans online. He didn't play most of the season, so came back in the playoffs. Nonetheless, he was one of the leaders within that defensive unit, especially from the secondary. So I think getting CGJ just to cover up some of those holes, like on a third down where you know where the ball is going. There's a guy in the slot, and you just have nobody to cover him. You have nobody you're confident enough in to put on them one-on-one, right? Now you have to switch to a zone and have to do all this different stuff. No, if you need to now, you can go one-on-one, man-to-man, and you can have guys that you trust to go out there and strap up. And that's going to make a complete difference in the defense as a whole, man. So I love that point by you.
You talked about C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. He's a difference maker in the secondary for sure. Yeah. But, Scotty, I'll take it a step further. What good are Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean to us if they're being used 8 yards off the line of scrimmage and not being put in spots and being put in the position to make plays on a ball or to strap somebody or to get a stop on third down?
Yeah.
What good were those draft picks? See, that's why I think Howie and Jeffrey Lurie and Nick, they all had to sit down, right? And when it comes to the difference in direction that Howie went this offseason, the cornerback picks early, paying a running back. Because people say to me, oh, well, are the Eagles going to use Saquon like they should, or are you going to see Kenneth Gainwell? Howie Roseman is not paying a running back top dollar if he's not being used. That was discussed with Kellen Moore. Howie Roseman is not wasting his first 2 draft picks in a big time situation.
Yeah.
If Vic Fangio is not going to put these dudes in positions to play and to succeed on the line of scrimmage, what good is Cooper DeJean to me? I mean, maybe he plays safety. So Quinyon Mitchell, let's just say, what good is my first round draft cornerback 2 to me if he's lined up 7 yards off the line of scrimmage and just has to see ball, catch, make a tackle in the open field? What good is that draft pick to me at that point? So I think believe that there was a direction this offseason. There were conversations with these coordinators, with these coaches, with ownership, and that's how they made their decisions this offseason on how to adjust this roster and where to go from here.
I think they kind of what you said there, they went towards more of a youth movement, right? Like they brought in young talent. That's the big thing. Young, talented Energizer buddies and these young kids that they got in the draft, man. And then you talk about Bryce Huff. You basically traded Hassan Reddick, your old rental, in for a new rental. That's what Bryce Huff is. He's coming in to replace Hassan Reddick. And you just have to hope that he can give you the same production, but you do still have guys like that, like Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, right? You expect Milton Williams to get better, man. I agree with you. I think there was a little bit of an identity hunt this offseason, and I think they're going with youthful energy on the defensive end. And then when you look to the offense, there's no trend there. It's just top-end talent. That's why they're one of the best in the NFL. But I can't agree with you more, man. I don't understand. I guess I get the skepticism if you're skeptical on the defense. I do get it. I just don't think, like, I don't know. I guess I'm just maybe operating from, like, it can't be worse than last year.
We'll wrap this conversation up in a second and move on to what's happening now. But I agree. I don't get how this team is the organization in the city that people are skeptical on right now.
Yeah.
I trust me, I know how poorly and how rough last year ended. You and I sat here a couple days after the Eagles season ended in Tampa Bay and talked about whether or not Nick Sirianni should be back. How much blame goes on Jalen Hurts' shoulders and how bad he was down the stretch of that season. But they just went to a Super Bowl the year prior. They've made all these improvements all across the roster.
Yeah.
They've got guys locked up. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, basically their entire core offensive line.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get how that organization is under the microscope right now for should we believe in them to start the season type of thing.
Yeah, I don't get it either. If you have them behind the Phillies, I think rightfully so, just because the Fightins are playing so well right now.
They're the best team in baseball right now. That's
outside of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you have the Sixers, if you're more confident in the Sixers, and maybe it's just because it's the offseason with the Sixers right now, but it's the same thing with it's the Eagles offseason too. Like, this is the time to be optimistic.
And you and I are incredibly high on the Sixers right now. But the point we're trying to make is if you're incredibly high on the Sixers, you damn sure better be high on the Eagles heading into this year.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. The offensive coordinator hire alone makes me extremely excited. I'm excited to see Saquon Barkley, a full-time running back that can pass block.
Do we forget that quickly what a nightmare Brian Johnson was each and every game?
The plays that we watched, oh my God.
Every quarter, without fail, the first offensive drive, we would cross the 50, no problem. He'd have rhythm. He was mixing up the pass and run. He would take a shot down the field. And then next thing you know, pass.
It's aired out season.
Field goal, whatever the case was.
Run on third down.
That rhythm. Quarterback draw on 3rd and 8, wide receiver bubble screen on 3rd and 10. It never failed. Just that alone, to your point, is a major positivity swing. Vic Fangio from Matt Patricia and Sean Desai, major positivity swing.
Yeah.
And like you said, those are just, I don't want to say off the field because they determine a lot on the field, but those aren't even who's taking action for this team. And they adjusted the roster and improved the roster like nobody else did this
offseason. The offseason isn't even over.
Right.
They might add another pass rusher, maybe, right? Like, who knows what they could add over the next few months, over the next month or so. And even approaching the trade deadline, we know how he doesn't sit on his hands. He will, if there's a problem with the pass rush, because Hassan Reddick is missing and maybe Bryce Huff isn't living up to what we paid him in free agency, Howie Roseman will go out and he will get another pass rusher.
Kevin Byard was a hell of an acquisition at the time. It didn't work out, whether that's Kevin Byard, the player, whether that was the coordinating issues, scheme, fit, whatever. But the thought that, okay, my secondary is an issue, let me go get a Pro Bowl caliber safety to fix this issue, that's the right mentality to have, and that's the type of mentality your GM has heading into each and every deadline, especially with a team that we're expecting to be a contender in the conference again. So, yeah, man, I don't get I don't want to call it negativity, skepticism, I guess, around the Eagles. And is it me or did it just like pop up out of thin air today? Like, the Sixers haven't made any moves in a couple days. The Phillies had an off day, 2 days ago. So let's just throw this out there and see if
Emmanuel Acho, man, he just, I don't know. And it's funny, man, because there was a clip in the thread of him like after the Eagles beat the Bills, and he was saying how Jalen Hurts is the best player in the NFL and the most valuable player in the NFL, and he's going to take him over anybody outside of Patrick Mahomes. And then just like that, 7 games later, he's taking Dak Prescott over Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's blowing with the wind, my man. It's crazy. It's crazy, but this is where we're at. This is good stuff because you want to keep this team motivated. They don't need to be told how good they are anymore. I think especially that offense, they know how good they are. They know what expectations are set for them, and this is only going to fuel them more, man. So I think keep the negativity coming, especially from the outside. We don't need it from the inside, but from the outside, keep it coming and keep giving them bulletin board material. We need as much as we can, my man.
I agree. Let's talk some Sixers Summer League standouts. But before we get to that,
we want some Morey Glaze.
Yeah, before we get to Jared McCain and Dembona and Justin Edwards and Ricky Council dropping 29 and 19 points in the fourth quarter of the first Summer League action 2 nights ago, before we get to all that, I do want to talk about Podcast P for a second because obviously wearing number 8 came out. It's obviously officially official that Paul George is a 76er, and some clips and his podcast came out the other day. And there's just been a lot of discussion I've seen on Twitter about.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah, about Paul George's, want to be here. The Warriors trade was obviously a discussion. Re-signing with the Clippers and those contract negotiations were a discussion, and then it kind of came to us. The one thing I find, I don't want to say interesting, like. I just don't know what you expected him to say. Like, they were kind of just walking through his offseason. He said, like, he has no control. I mean, he has some say, I guess, if he wanted to go to the Warriors. But, a trade is a trade. It was blocked because the Clippers didn't want to do business with a team out west in the Warriors, and that's fine. And then, obviously, we know he's an L.A. boy. He probably wanted to stay in L.A. And return to that team if giving the right money.
Makes sense, right?
So then he comes here. The thing I loved is hearing him talk about how the Sixers grabbed his attention and what the Sixers campaigned for, and making a video with athletes and stars and just fans of the city. Mike Trout, Saquon Barkley, Kevin Hart, Lil Dicky, Joel Embiid said something. Dr. J was out there. All of that. Like we talked about the other day, just them kind of turning turning the ship around and steering it in a positive direction, and just acting differently than years past. So yeah, man, that the Paul George podcast P clips obviously stirred some things up amongst Sixers fans, but guess what? He's here for 4 years, so.
Yeah, man, it was those clips were interesting. The tweets about the clips were probably more interesting, I guess. Just how first of all, like, if you're not a Sixers fan, why the fuck are you worried about how we feel? Like, worry about yourselves. Worry about what he plays like once he hits the court with the Sixers. If he looks like ass, then maybe you can pull these clips and be like, well, he doesn't even want to be there. Blah blah blah. But doing it right now, it's just like weird, man. No, it's not Sixers fans, honestly. I haven't seen much pushback from too many Sixers fans. There's a few distinct ones out there, but I haven't seen a ton of pushback from Sixers fans because we understand. Like, we would rather him be honest about it than say, like, nah, I've been pining for the Sixers since, I knew I was becoming a free agent this offseason. Like, no, he tried to stay with the Clippers, obviously. If he wasn't trying, they probably would have traded him, right? Yeah. So, like, we would rather him be authentic than lie just to pander to us, right? Because we call guys that pander to us a little too much, a little corny. Yeah. We let some guys slide, though. Bryce Harper can pander all he wants. Yeah. Nick Castellanos did some good pandering. The Phillies are the kings of pandering, by the way. But, no, man, I just thought that was funny. I do like your point about just what they kind of did to get Paul George in on the Sixers. And this is what you have to do. Like, it almost makes you think, like, why weren't we doing this sooner? Like taking Dr. J to meetings or Allen Iverson to meetings, these great Sixers legends, right? And the interesting part that I found just so like it would make me want to come to if I was Paul George. But he said he was talking to Dr. J, and he said, first of all, like, Dr. J's in my house. His dad was, like, pissing himself because Dr. J's in the house. And he said he's talking to Dr. J, and Dr. J says, we went to the championship, lost. We went to the championship, lost. We went to the championship, lost. Traded for Moses Malone, won the championship. He was the missing piece. That's what you can be. Obviously, he drew that story out a lot longer and a lot more details. But that was the point, and that's what Paul George kind of said fed into selling him on this roster, being that piece with Embiid and Maxey. And the other thing that he did talk about with, like, the placement, the biggest thing for him moving from, like, the West Coast to the East Coast was his daughters. He just didn't want to take them away from their friends. So, like, very understandable from that sense. But nonetheless, I do agree with you, man. Just taking Dr. J to the crib, having everybody there, though. Elton Brand, even Josh Harris, like, we got to give him a little bit of credit. He's going out there. He's spending that bag. He's pushing us. I don't know if we're going into the second apron, whatever. Yeah. But he's going out. He's willing to spend the bread. He's willing to spend the time to go out to L.A. and meet with Paul George, man. So I think overall, I don't know if this was, like, just them all waking up together. I don't know if this is Daryl Morey coming in and setting a precedent. This is what an organization looks like.
If we're being honest, and this was the plan, right? This was what was laid out there. Excuse me, for everybody to be patient. You have to go all in on the Paul George.
Yeah,
like you better put your.
You had no choice
together. So,
like, looking back on it, there was no, like, as of right now, there were no other options.
No,
unless you're trading, like, all five of your draft picks.
You better put that video team together and make one hell of a video.
And look, Daryl Morey loves posting them YouTube videos of the highlights and shit, so should be pretty easy to put together. But I love what the Sixers are doing there, man.
What did you think about his comments on the pod between Maxey and Embiid? And it's kind of what we've talked about when he said at the one part, he said, I've never played with a dominant big like this before.
Yeah.
And that's the vision, right? Like, that's something you and I talked about. Like, we sit here and we talk about what Paul George can do for Joel Embiid, how he can space the floor, he can shoot from three, he can, give Embiid help on nights off, etc.
Yeah.
But you also have to look at it from what can Joel Embiid do to further Paul George. Paul George has been a consistent 23 point per game scorer, over 41% from deep. I mean, again, with how ball dominant Joel is, Max is going to get his. I'm not trying to sit here and say George's, points per game are going to go up 25 or 26 this year, but it could be a lot more. It could be a lot more impactful. 24.
He could, man.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Hey, I'm glad you brought that up as well, because when you talk about Joel Embiid and playing with a big in that sense, it is completely different, and it makes life easier. Like, you see it with Jokic, you see it with Embiid. They're the only two that really can do this for anybody in the NBA. They're the two big men that have that skill set that can really just dominate and be at an MVP level. But when you look at what Embiid is doing with Team USA right now, if you see some of those clips out there of the practices against the select team, whatever, first of all, Embiid just looks massive, man. Like, I can't imagine, like, as a basketball player, I'm about 6 foot. I can't imagine having to drive into a lane and Embiid is just sitting there like this, 7'2", 280, 300 pounds, and athletic. Like, he can move with you too. He's sitting there sliding his feet down and then glassing you. Like, I just can't imagine going up against a guy like that. But then I see at the USA practice, man, this is why it is great that Embiid is doing this with the USA team, because he's getting to play with guys like LeBron, Steph, Kevin Durant, so on and so forth, all the stars, which he's going to have to learn even more. I'm not saying he wasn't good at sharing the ball. He's gotten better over the last couple of years. He's sitting at the top of the key in a playmaking position. Yep. He's making passes out to LeBron at the three-point line. He's making passes to Curry, cutting. Like, this is all the stuff that we should see with Tyrese Maxey and Paul George and so on and so forth. Like Kelly Oubre cutting in the lane, Joel Embiid feeding him. Caleb Martin cutting in the lane, Joel Embiid feeding him. So on and so forth, man. I think playing with the USA team specifically is only going to make him even more prepared to play with guys like Paul George.
I agree, man. I think it's a great point, because not even that, just getting around a winning culture. Hopefully this team, obviously, not
learning how to lead,
can go out and acquire that gold medal again, right? And it's like, we were so hesitant at first. I was anti it at first, especially with how injured he was a couple months before heading into the playoffs. They weren't sure.
And that is fair.
And I was sitting here like, man, it's more mileage on the knees. Could you imagine the heart attack we're going to have if this dude goes down in the middle of the summer on Team USA and misses whatever the case may be? But I think the pros kind of outweigh the negatives now. And that is just, like you said, all the points you made about being around those guys and just learning how to play a little bit of a different style of basketball, playmaking a little bit more, sharing the rock a little bit more, not having to be the focal point, which you don't. I mean, he's always going to be. He's Joel freaking Embiid, but you don't necessarily have to be that with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey and shooters around you all the time. And then again, if they can go and get the job done, winning, right? Like, that's something he's never been out of the second round. Winning,
feel that.
The guys that have won before. Maybe he can bring that back. When it's all said and done, and display that to his teammates and be a different type of leader this year as well.
I just think, like, even the reports coming out about LeBron right now, there was a report that came out. I think it was Steve Kerr that said to the reporter, but he said how hard LeBron is working at practice. Like, every single drill, every motion, every run through of offense, whatever the case may be, LeBron is going 120% through all of it. Just seeing stuff like that from a guy like LeBron, from guys like Steph Curry, man, these are the best leaders in the NBA when it comes to knowing what it takes to win. So yeah, man, I think that is ultimately why Embiid not only chose US. I know there's other reasons that feed into playing for Team USA. But why would you choose to not play with those guys? Whether it's learning from them, whether it's playing the best basketball of your life and having fun with it, or whether it's just, learning how to win, whatever the case may be, man, why not? And I'm excited for that opportunity for him. But yeah, I think to your point about Paul George, you talk about an uptick in points. I honestly just don't see why he wouldn't get up to like the 24, 25-ish point per game mark, honestly, with the looks that he's going to get. The only thing is if, you're getting like 15 a game from like Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre consistently, and then maybe that just takes away from Maxey and Paul George a little bit. But that's the thing, man. Does Maxey get better? Like, is he capable of averaging 30 points per game like Joel? Like,
right. I think that's the expectation. Not 30 a game, but I think the expectation is
you won't need that from him, but
to continue to grow and develop. And we talked about him becoming more of a consistent playmaker, and there's assist totals and just running an offense, right?
Can he get up to 8 assists, right? Like, we don't have to focus on the numerical part of it, but I think just an uptick in efficiency in general is what we're going to see offensively. An uptick in three-point shooting as well, man. Attempts.
I agree with you. The last thing I wanted to point at before we get to the Summer League action, obviously Caleb Martin, Andre Drummond were officially welcomed to the team.
Yeah.
And they had some quotes. We obviously know Paul George has had some quotes, and all three guys so far. And again, maybe it's pandering, maybe it's hit me right in the feels where they want to get to. Kelly had some comments, but they've all talked about this fan base being tough, but it's the right kind of tough they're looking to play for. Like their personalities, the type of players they are, it's the type of fans they're looking to play in front of. That pressure is good pressure. They talked about Kelly Oubre saying he fell in love with basketball again, so why would he go anywhere else? That's again, it might just be a plus pandering session, and it
could have got more money though.
Get me, but they've all said the same thing. Drummond, Martin, PG, Kelly all talked about playing for a fan base and for a team that has high expectations under the right type of pressure. And if they're tough on you, it's because you deserve it, etc. And it's like, finally, let's just hope it's not pandering. Finally, there are actual dogs, actual talented
guys that
basketball players in here that get it.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then I think this team, the ceiling for this team just continues to go through the roof.
I do agree with you, man. Getting guys that are bought in, all giving the same message. I think that just shows where their heads are at. I am curious, man. I was listening to Caleb Martin talk. He obviously talked about Nick Nurse, had high regards for him, kind of talked about in like comparison to Eric Spoelstra, kind of put them on a similar level, right? Like, no, of course, nobody's saying Nick Nurse is better than Spo, but he was putting them on a similar level from experience, winning a championship, so on and so forth. Do you just wonder, like, why he left the Heat? Like, I'm not, like, questioning it super hard. I don't care that much.
I can tell you why.
Why do you think?
It was a complete market and agent misread. It was they turned down the extension from the Heat because they wanted more. The second you do that as a role player, not a star, you do that as a role player, that's not going to be taken lightly. That offer is going to be removed. He went out, saw what his market was, and by the time he went back to the Heat, they were like you are a role player. You are not Jimmy Butler. You're not Bam Adebayo. You're not Tyler Hero. Let's just say, like, they don't that. And once you misread your value as a role player and decline that initial offer, you're kind of SOL. And I think that's what happened. And then he came here. But the interesting part is he did sign a 4-year deal here. Like, it's not like he went out and signed a 1-year deal elsewhere to prove his value or anything like that. He locked into trying to win here now. So there's levels to it. Like, that's not the only reason I just think that's the reason he's not back in Miami. That's not the reason he's here in Philly.
Because the reason I asked that is just thinking through it. Like, why wouldn't you want to play with alone Maxey and Embiid rather than whatever pairing you want to put together? Jimmy and Bam down there. In my people can say whatever they want. I'm taking Maxey and Embiid over Jimmy and Bam every single time. But the point being, I was just wondering if maybe that is why that decision was made. But to your point, that would make more sense financially. I think that's why the decision was comfortable down in Miami.
Yeah, I think it's why it was made to come to Philly. But I think, originally to leave Miami, that first Miami offer was revoked after him and his agent decided not to.
That makes a lot more sense.
For sure. A lot of positive comments. I love everything I'm hearing, and it just, I don't know. It feels like it's going to be a different brand of basketball. Obviously, the talent is just on a whole nother level. The guys around Embiid, the roster, we know that, but it just seems like again, it's a few comments from their introductory, meeting, but it's like if they're all bought in on the same type of message and the same mentality, now the head coach has something to work with, right?
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
maybe you had a guy that signed a $26 million deal in Detroit that wasn't necessarily sharing that same mentality up here. So I don't know. But
truth, though.
But the Detroit Pistons getting a lot better. Tobias Harris and B-Ball Paul down there for them. So they're improving.
Sounds like a clunky basketball team, man.
That is in the title. We got a little off the rails, but that's the summer. We got a lot to talk about. Things come up last minute. We still have to talk Phillies dominating the Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani last night. But let's start with some Sixers summer league standouts. Let's start with Abe's comment, man. Jared McCain. And Paul Hudrick had a really cool tweet last night. He said, when I was watching Jared McCain and Duke, I thought he could be a good I forget off ball guard.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I just didn't realize how good. And that's the thing when it comes to Jared McCain. It's 2 summer league games. We know the level of competition is very early. No one's trying to overhype some of these kids and say that there's going to be people out there. Jared McCain or Ricky Council needs to be in the rotation come opening night for the Sixers. We don't know that yet. Let's continue to see. But I will say from seeing some Jared McCain action, some clips, etc. Last night, I was watching the Phillies mostly. There's a smoothness to his game at this level already, and I don't want to call it this level because again, there's a big difference from summer league to regular season, and there it is. That's the way. There is a smoothness
saying the same thing
to his game with the ball in his hands, getting to the rack. He's not the quickest dude on the floor, but the way he leverages his body and just change of motion real quick, he's tricky, man, and he finishes at the top. What'd he go for from 3 the first night? 0 for 5, 0 for 6 from deep.
Yeah.
Comes out, hits back-to-back threes, one in transition in the first 2 minutes of the game.
That one in transition. He's gonna get that look so many times.
Yeah, that's his game.
Oh man. He's going to get that look so many times with Embiid and Paul George and whoever's running the break.
Even night 1, the first bucket, him getting in the lane as a point guard and just beautifully over a defender's outreached arm, lobbing one up by the rim for Bona. I didn't necessarily know he had that type of precision passing in his bag. I know it's a lob and not a threading the needle type of play, but I mean, he's been a fun watch so far, dude.
Yeah, I think I have enjoyed most of his action as the on-ball guard, him running a little bit of point guard with that summer league team, just because we know what Maxey can do off ball. So if you can have both of those guys excelling off ball and on ball, we know what Maxey can do on ball as well. He can score the rock, but if you can have both of those guys with versatile capabilities coming out there on the basketball court, it's going to be a completely unpredictable team. Yeah, that's the other side of it, right? We've seen him get on the floor and make some plays, get the ball out on a fast break for a dunk. He gets hype with the team. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always running up to teammates to help him up off the floor. He's just the perfect team guy. But then he also has the smooth and calm skill set to go with it. But really, it's the playmaking, man, the ability to find guys, like you said, on that oop. That was the big one to Edem Bona. But just finding guys in general. I know in the first game he only had 3 assists. He had 6 rebounds, but that's the point. 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He's fixing, he's filling all parts of the stat sheet. Then last night, I think he had 12. He was 3 for 7 from the 3-point line. So you kind of saw the other part of his game, which is the shooting. That's the part you already know about. But I just think he's going to continue to grow and develop. And you can already just see kind of the similar tendencies that he has to Maxey. I know everybody was kind of given that comparison. I'm not going to put those type of expectations on him just yet. Just be a great role player for us, and I will be ecstatic. But if he can be a starter level by year 2 or whatever the case may be, right? If he can excel at that pace, kind of like Maxey did, great. if he turns into a good role player, a 6-man off the bench, whatever the case may be, that's still going to be great for this roster. But yeah, I've been thoroughly impressed. And I've just been happy because obviously I talked a lot of shit after we picked him, and I needed him to be good for my reputation. But like a lot of the stuff that he's showing right now in the summer league, he did not show at Duke. He didn't have the ball in his hands, making plays and running screen and rolls and making decisions off the pick and roll for the big man. He wasn't doing stuff like that. So he's actually showing even more than what he showed at Duke University last year. So yeah, I'm glad Sixers fans are getting to see him though. Like you need to see it with your own eyes. You need to see it in live action. You need to see him doing it for your team to believe it. And I hope as the summer goes on and as we get into the early part of the season, I'm hoping we get to see that. Like, how do you feel? I know it's super early, but just preemptively right now, how do you feel about Kyle Lowry coming back and basically taking Jared McCain's minutes?
Right.
It's very early. We don't know that McCain can be worthy of a rotation spot yet.
Well, I'm in the camp of you have 2 minimums to give out. I'm in the camp of bringing Kyle Lowry back. Again, it's 2 summer league games. You can't put your stamp on anything yet and just hand over the reins to come off the bench at this point yet. But the thing with Kyle Lowry is in a limited role, not 35 minutes in a playoff game type of role. He shot over 39% from 3 last year, averaged over 8 points per game. We know the rapport with Nick Nurse, championship level guard. You bring him back, right? But the competition stays open. Kyle Lowry, another year older, you don't know what he looks like. Gint made a great point in the comments yesterday. If McCain has minutes later on in the season, maybe it's an Eric Gordon that finds his way out of the rotation. I'm not saying I want that. I would love Eric Gordon to come over and be a 3-point sniper for this team and be a consistent role bench piece for them. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the point guard or McCain. He could find ways to get minutes. And if Nick, and regular season too, Nick's going to go deeper down the bench compared to a playoff rotation. So I see a lot of guys can get minutes. So
Marshawn asked, how's Dalton Connect doing? Funny, I just looked it up because, believe it or not, Bronny James plays for the Lakers Summer League team, so you will not hear anything about Dalton Connect in the headlines.
Actually, night one was a good thing that you didn't hear anything about him because of Bronny, because he struggled in his first game.
Oh, I was going to say, he was 3 for 12 against the Kings, and I don't know if that was night one or not. Then the next night, he was 3 for 13, 12 points in each game, so not matching McCain yet. And this is a senior in college versus a freshman coming out of college. But still a lot of time there to grow. Obviously, he won't have those shooting struggles forever. But interesting. They are players that will definitely be compared by our fan base until there's a definitive answer there for sure. Absolutely. So understandable. But I think that's a fair comment. Yeah, Tyus Jones, if you can get a guy like – I don't think that we – well, I guess we could technically with the KJ Martin exception thing. I don't know, man. Like, once again, we get back to that point guard versus like power forward. Like, would you rather bring in a like good point guard like Tyus Jones, or would you rather bring in like a good power forward like DFS, right? So I don't know.
I would probably go with DFS at that point. I just think you keep.
The link.
I think I would still go with power forward like that. But
like if you can get Kyle Lowry instead of Tyus Jones and still get DFS, that's a pretty good.
But I do agree. I don't know. I think that's out of reach. It's out of reach now. But what about a Dembona, man? Now obviously Andre Drummond signs a 2-year deal. There is a team option next year, but hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have to use that team option next year because Andre Drummond continues to be a very nice backup center behind Joel Embiid. But this kid's athleticism, man, is that we already knew that though, right? Like the lead on a Dembona was the motor and the athleticism. He's undersized, right? We know that. We know that movie with Paul Reed, being an undersized backup center and how things don't work. And he was a high energy guy. This guy's a little bit different. He's just more physical on the glass. He gets up above the rim a lot more off the ball, right? He can create from that perspective. Andre Drummond's kind of blocking him. To me, Adem Bona is a perfect two-way contract this year for if Joel gets hurt or Drummond gets hurt. But let's say Joel gets 2 games off or something. Bona comes up. Drummond's your starter. Bona comes off the bench. When it's Joel and Drummond, Bona's down. He's on, he's not on the Sixers roster at the moment. Things like that. But I saw your tweet last night. By the time Drummond's out of here, Kid could be ready.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Marshawn said he looked like an Avenger out there. He does. He flies through the air, man. He goes with reckless abandonment. Now, mind you get 10 fouls in Summer League for whatever reason. I don't know how that is helping them develop by giving them 10 fouls. So, God willing, hopefully he can, you do have to tone it down a little bit, right, when you get to the NBA, just how soft it is. But he is an athletic freak. Yeah, pause. Massive. Hey, I said it about Embiid earlier, so I guess I should have hit the pause there as well. But he is interesting. I will say, man, he's shown great signs, energy, finishing above the rim, rebounding, blocking shots specifically. More than anything that I think is different from Paul Reed is the mentality, going after everything, relentlessness. And he just comes from a different background. It's kind of as simple as that. He comes from, kind of an international spotlight, right? So I don't know if that changes your mentality towards it at all or not. But he's just so relentless when he's out there. I will say, while I think he could end up turning into like that next backup big for Joel Embiid after Drummond, there is still that side of worry with Paul Reed and the similarities there. Like the undersize, is he a 4? Is he a 5? Could he play 4 and like rim run around Embiid, right? Like these are all the same things we said about Paul Reed at a certain point in time when he was dominating the G League. He doesn't. That's the difference. Along with the athleticism, the relentlessness, the wingspan. It's a lot different from that aspect. Because Adem Bona has like a 7'2", 7'3", 7'3" wingspan. So that is a lot different when it comes to the defensive end of things, where we've already seen he's blocked 6 shots through 2 games so far in Summer League. So that alone is going to be better than Paul Reed. I do think there's potential there to become the next guy up after Andre Drummond. I think that's probably best case scenario for him. I know there's a lot of people talking about giving him minutes this season. I think he'll see a couple minutes against the Hornets
this is
back-to-back one night.
Where my fellow fan base gets so out of reach.
Super ahead of yourself.
I'm not saying it's a no. I'm not hitting the red button. I'm not hitting the eject button.
Is he taking Drummond's spot? Fuck no, he's not. Like, we're not doing that.
You cannot watch one night of Summer League or 2 nights of Summer League in freaking July and make these declarations that these guys are NBA ready and need to have serious minutes for this team come regular season.
Paul Reed simply might not be better than Bona, period. Like, regardless of the contract, he just might not be better than Bona in the first place. But
I agree. The thing with Bona, right? McCain's showing a little bit more that we might not have known he had in his bag. Bona is just exemplifying the tape. Like everything you saw,
showing exactly what he is,
etc., is the energy, is the block shots, is the dunks, is the rebounding, and that's exactly what he's doing so far through 2 games of Summer League.
Completely agree.
Ricky Council, man, real quick. I didn't see what he put up last night at the end of the game, but obviously night 1 2 nights ago, 29 points, 5 of 10 from 3. I mean, we know he's on the roster.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, McCain and Ricky, but right now Ricky probably has the best opportunity for minutes.
Yeah.
Probably because he was here last year, played down the stretch, etc. Understands Nick Nurse and has a relationship with him already. And now you add in just, again, if Ricky Council can shoot 37% from 3-point land, 36% from 3-point land, you take it. You take it and you run with it, man.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that was the bright signs he showed from that first showing. I believe he hit, let me just double check here. I want to say 5 threes, but
5 of 10, yeah.
5 of 10. Where's he at? Yeah, 5 of 10, like you said. 29 points, 8 rebounds, did a lot of that in the fourth quarter, hit them all in a row. And the reason I really, really like that he did that in that way is because we're not looking for Ricky Council to come up and play, how many minutes did he play in this game? 28 minutes
Right.
and, drop 30 points a game for the Sixers. We're not asking him to do that.
We're
going to ask him to. Exactly. We're going to ask him to come in at a certain point in the game and give us 8 points in a row, 2 threes and a dunk, like whatever the case may be, right? It's great to see that he has that capability to get hot in the flash of a second, right? So yeah, that's what I love to see from it. He slowed down a little bit last night. I didn't shoot the ball much. Maybe it was a focus on the Grizzlies to kind of stop him from the night before, or maybe he did lose a little bit of confidence there. I'm not sure exactly. We'll see more tonight. They play again tonight at 9 against the Jazz, so I expect him to bounce back a little bit. But there was a point in time in that first game against OKC where you're asking yourself if Ricky even needs to be playing out here. Because the athleticism, if he's hitting the three-point shot, I don't want to call him unguardable. At that level, he's unguardable. But, like, he has some moves to get to the rim. He's always in attack mode. He is relentless. The only thing, and shout out to Sean Barnard, because I feel like he pointed this out on Twitter last night. He's in Summer League right now, so you don't want to tell him to slow his roll too much as far as the shot taking. But some of the shots, I saw him last night at the three-point line. He, caught the ball at the three-point line, put the ball behind his back. The guy flies by and shoots the three. I don't know if you're doing, those type of moves with Joel Embiid and Paul George and Tyrese Maxey on the court, and you're staying in the game, especially if you miss that shot. It is great to see the confidence, though, and the ability. He did pump fake the guy and get the shot off. It was cool to see. But you don't want to go too confident in there when you got other talented players around you. But this is what you want to see from him in the Summer League, nonetheless. And I do think you think about athleticism, size, length, relentlessness. He's another guy you can throw in there at the wing spot, and he can give you some quality minutes. And I'm trying to think, man. Because I know you said he probably has a better chance over McCain to get in the rotation. I do agree. I'm just trying to think, I'm blanking right now. Who are our other wings on the bench right now? You know what I mean? If Oubre, Martin, and PG are starting, he is going to be that guy off the bench. He is going to be that first wing that comes in.
Right, but to be fair, for McCain, the only guard you have off the bench right now is Eric Gordon.
Yeah.
So, again, there's roster spots to be filled, and they're going to for minimum. So we'll see how they play. But
is Marcus Morris taking minutes from Ricky Council if that's who they go with as that other forward? I don't know if I would even want to see that. I don't know.
No, I agree with you, man. But real quick, last one to touch on before we wrap up with the Phillies. Justin Edwards, can he grab? Is there one more or two more two-way contract spots available for the Sixers? Is Justin Edwards a candidate for one of those? I think he's a candidate, but with the likeliness of him grabbing one, I believe he was a top 5 consensus pick heading into before last year started for this year's draft. Inconsistent at Kentucky, but had moments, severe moments. And he came out last night and shot the shit out of the rock a little bit and showed what he can do. Undrafted free agent for the Sixers pickup. I mean, you don't just lose top 3 consensus pick and go undrafted. So it could be a steal of a player down the road if you can get him on a two-way right now.
Yeah, no, I think he's a prime candidate for that. If it's the last spot, I'm not sure exactly, but I think he's a prime candidate. Exactly what's being said in the comments, exactly what you said. He's from Philly, he has the pedigree with Kentucky. And things can get lost in translation or transition, if you want to say, when you go to college like that. We even saw Maxey drop to the 21st pick, right? And he ends up being way better. This is a different degree, but the same thing. When you're not getting to show all your talents at that said school, maybe we can get it out of him in the NBA. And he did show some flashes. I think the thing that excited me most last night was the efficiency. 5 for 7 from the field, limited shots, 3 for 3 from the three-point line, gets up to 14 points. I really liked what I saw from him. It does depend on Jeff Doughton Jr., man, because I think like there is part of me that just wishes Kyle Lowry would just be like an assistant coach. And then maybe you just keep Jeff Doughton Jr. over him. Like, I know we don't know a ton about Doughton Jr., but just watching how smooth he is playing at the summer league level, some of the moments he had last year where he had to step up, he can rebound. He's lengthy at the guard position. He is a true point guard. Not saying take him over Kyle Lowry, especially in a minimum role. I might be taking it a little too far there. But he has like looked really good. And I think he could play because he seems like a nurse guy, right? Like, why are they keeping him around? He does seem like a nurse guy. So what do they end up doing with him in comparison to Justin Edwards? Justin Edwards, the younger product, though, more fit for that two-way contract, especially. It'll be interesting to see what they do. They have options. And once again, we're going to glaze Daryl Morey a little bit here, because guess who put together that draft class? That was Daryl Morey right there. And we're talking highly of every single one of those guys outside of Counsell and Doughton, who obviously weren't part of this, but he did sign Counsell as an undrafted rookie free agent. So, yeah, another notch for Daryl Morey on the belt for now, right? We don't know what these guys will turn into come regular season and so on and so forth in their careers. But right now, he's looking like he did a great job, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'll fight you tooth and nail that I will take Kyle Lowry 7 days a week and 100 times on Sunday before I put Jeff Doughton Jr. in this rotation. I only say that because, like, I get it. Like,
Trust me, bro.
It's exciting, and it's cool to watch, and you never know, especially Lowry hitting the end of his career and Doughton, being the younger player. You never know the trajectory over a season or two. But like you said, you're watching what Doughton's doing in the summer league. But we watched Kyle Lowry
in the playoff,
in playoff moments, taking charges, getting a loose ball rebound, knocking down a big three from the top of the key. So,
Yeah, and I don't think that they'll opt that way. Like I said, I was over exaggerating maybe a little bit.
Sorry, we get it.
What I like him as like a reserve is basically what I'm saying. Like a guy that if Kyle Lowry gets injured, he can come up and play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would love that. I think he is a guy that can handle himself at any level, if that makes sense. If you just ask him to not make mistakes, handle the ball, get the ball to guys that need to get the ball, I think he can do that. But to your point, Lowry can be a difference maker in a minimal role.
Yep.
So you'll take that for sure. I agree.
All right. Before we transition to our last segment of the day, I see over 50 people in here right now. If you are watching on Twitter, thank you. But do yourself a favor, do us a favor. Make sure to check out the YouTube link specifically. It is in the link tree in our bio. It is the best and only spot you can get your comments posted up here and be interactive with us. And you're just doing us a huge favor. Like we said, if we get over 200 subscribers by the end of summer, just over a month to go, we will be doing a massive giveaway. Maybe it's a Paul George jersey. Maybe it's the throwback AI black unis for a Maxi jersey. Maybe it's Phillies. Whatever you guys want, we'll do it. Just make sure you support by smashing that subscribe button if you are tuning into the content regardless. Let's talk Phillies, man. They dominated the LA Dodgers last night in game one.
Keep saying it. They dominated.
Dominated them. Zach Wheeler comes out. First AB of the game. Shohei Ohtani, 3 fastballs, 97, 98, 98, right up and in. Ohtani goes down swinging. Wheeler was pumped. You could just feel the energy and the momentum of this game from first pitch on. Playoff atmosphere, obviously. It feels like that every night at the bank, but specifically when you have a team like the Dodgers with that payroll, with those superstars, neck and neck with the Phillies for the best record in the National League, going to be fighting them for the 1 seed, hopefully, for the next 2+ months. To get that win is huge, and it was just so nice to see. Harper came back, didn't get a hit or anything, but Harper and Schwarber's return, and the offense just ignites immediately, and in large part due to the bottom of the order. Rafael Marchand was a stud last night, getting things started with 2 outs, a double, it ended up being a long single down the line, but he doubled later on. He went 3 for 3. Brandon Marsh was electric in the 7-hole last night. Johan Rojas had 2. One was an infield single. One was a bouncer, a chopper over the third baseman's head to score a run. So the bottom of the order really set the table for the top of the order. Schwarber came up big with a 2-out, 2 RBI. What would have been a double. He got thrown out at second base. Turner. I mean, Trey Turner is just not human right now. Let's just get that out there. If Trey Turner did not get hurt for as long of a stint as he did, he would be leading the MVP charge right now. Yeah. He's unconscious, dude. Literally unconscious. He's been this way all season long, pre-injury, and now post-injury returning. Obviously, how we play, yeah, man. Like, and that's the thing. I think in that stretch of a slow start last year for Trey, it got lost how good he is. And we say this all the time. We talk about outsiders all the time. Remember when they were doing their list of preseason list, and Matt Olson was ahead of Bryce Harper on the first baseman. Yeah. Bryce was like 4th overall for first baseman. Same thing with Trey, bro. They had Trey Turner as like the 7th best, 8th best shortstop in the majors. Are you out of your goddamn mind? If Trey Turner is right, Trey Turner is a top 2 shortstop in baseball, and sometimes it's not number 2. Okay, so he's hits a grand slam last night. Erupts, blows doors wide open. Wheeler obviously dominates through 5, comes out with some back tightness, but it's okay. The bullpen holds it together for the most part, and they come away with a humongous 10-1 win, man. And I just think I'll throw this to you here, and it's even bigger in a situation against the Dodgers, in a series against the Dodgers compared to a lot of other teams. And I know they haven't won all the series. They win game 1, right? They just lost a series to the Braves where they won the first game, so it doesn't always pan out that way. But setting the tone, setting the tempo in game 1 of a 3-game set like that, and setting yourself up in a great position at home to now win the series over the next 2 games, huge. And I just feel like they do it almost every goddamn series. That's why they're at what are they, 59-32 at this point? Yep. That's what they're at. 59-32, 65% win, almost a 65% win percentage. They set the table for themselves. They set the tone for every series, and they did it again against one of the league's best teams last night.
Yeah, man, it's exactly what you want to see during this stretch, especially after a tough series loss to the Braves, right? You need to bounce back against one of the best teams in not only your conference, but in the MLB. And they do it in, like you said, dominating fashion. Everybody steps up to the plate here. Trey Turner, you hit the nail on the head there, man. I think he's gotten to this point where he's become underrated. I saw whenever they were announcing the All-Star team, even some of the guys in there were like complaining that he was getting a nod. Like you look at what Trey Turner's doing this season, man. 342 batting average. Like he's back and he's comfortable. And I think some people undersold what that means. Like going to a new team. You come out of the American Baseball Classic last year. So that threw a wrench into things, getting comfortable with the Fightins. I think he is just, we said it when we got him though, right? Like he is that guy that can put you over the hump. If he can have a stretch like this during a postseason, during one postseason series, that can win you a series in the playoffs for the MLB, man. So I love what I'm seeing from him. You mentioned it, getting Schwarber and Bryce back. It just gives you another level of confidence going into each and every game. I know there was people, out there. We were kind of skeptical ourselves if they should come back, if they shouldn't. They were ready to go. They felt good. They went out there and they performed and they were fine, right?
I mean, Schwarber tried to turn a single into a double. Bryce's first at bat. Bryce literally said pregame, I gotta keep it cool. I can't, go crazy.
Can't help it though.
First at bat, 100 miles per hour down the line, trying to beat out Bobby back.
And he wants to test it out a little himself. He wants to feel comfortable. He wants to know that he's back. And I think if you're to that level where you felt good going into the game, nothing's going to hurt with getting some more reps before the All-Star break. So I was happy to see those guys back. You mentioned the bottom of the order. Bryson Stott gets back on the nod. He's obviously been struggling. Cranks one last night. Struggled outside of that last night, but cranks one. You hope that can get him out of his funk. And you mentioned Marchand, man. And there's a lot of talk about this. What do you do when JT comes back? What do you do between Marchand and Garrett Stubbs? I'm interested on your thoughts here because I'm not going to have a professional opinion on that situation specifically. It's more of a vibes guy versus talent, right? I don't know if you simplify it down to that much. Like, is Garrett Stubbs just strictly a vibes guy?
It kind of is. Listen, he's not strictly a vibes guy. Garrett Stubbs can handle his own behind the plate a little bit. He can come up with a knock every now and then when you need one. I remember 2 years ago against the Marlins in a day game, they were down like 2-0 or 3-0 in the bottom 9, 2 outs, full count. He rips a walk-off home run into the upper tank. He can play at this level.
Yeah.
But he's not consistent. He's a guy, you see his name at the bottom of your order, and you just snare a little bit because you're like, nah, it kind of feels like an out every time. Whereas Rafael Marchand, better behind the plate, better arm behind the plate, and is just obviously a better hitter. I mean, Rafael Marchand is doing his thing at the dish right now. He's got the power. We've seen it a couple times. Pulling balls down the line, 2-out hitting, etc. I'm a talent over vibes guy. Listen, this is not it. But the question is, what do you do with Garrett Stubbs, right? Because you're not going to keep 3 catchers on the roster. Right. So you want them around. I get it. But I am a talent guy. I mean,
how does it work? Like, if you sent Marchand back down, could he get picked up by another team? Is it like kind of like the NFL or the NBA?
I don't know exactly how it works. And again, no, he can be sent back down and he's in our system, but I don't know that you can continue. You know, I don't know if you have a limit on how many times you can move him.
You can do that.
Because the thinking would go, okay, well, when JT's back, he's almost your everyday starter. He gets days off. So Stubbs can be there as the locker room guy, the vibes guy, keeping that group.
But if JT gets injured again,
then when JT, if JT has a rest day on day 6, Marchand gets the call up. Stubbs
bring him up
just down for one game. But again, I don't know if you have a cap, if you have a limit on how often you can bring these guys up and down before they can be waived or picked up by another team. So
he has 3 multi-hit games in his
last being honest, like it's not even close to talent. But you also have to look at it this way. If everyone's healthy, how deep the lineup is, JT's going to play. JT catches the most games in the majors every year. Obviously, he's hurt now, but when he's healthy, he's going to catch the most of any catcher. One game out of every however many, are you going to worry about the backup catcher spot that much? Right. And maybe without Marchand playing a lot, maybe if he's sitting on the bench for 7 days, his bat isn't as effective because he's not getting everyday at bats. So I don't know. I am a talent over friendship kind of guy, right? Vibes high. I'd rather have the best hitter out there. But again, you just don't want to screw with
and you know how united that team and that's
not to say they don't like Rafael Marchand. That's not to say they don't get along with him. He's not a great teammate as well. But the history of Garrett Stubbs over the last 2 years. Do you tinker with that at all? I don't know. So
like, does that affect the pitchers? Like, are they more comfortable just working with Stubbs more? Like,
let me ask you. We're before we wrap up, we're talking a lot about minors here and getting sent down. I mean, there's been a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation from Jim Bowden and Bob Nightingale and a couple other guys that in order to get some of these guys, whether it's Cody Bellinger, whether it's a Jazz Chisholm, I mean, you're not giving up a Jazz Chisholm, but Luis Robert, do you have to give up Aiden Miller? How many prospects do you have to give up? Some people are saying absolutely not. I'm putting my foot down. Aiden Miller goes nowhere. Other people are saying you do whatever it takes to push your chips in and try to win a championship now. Some people like balance. Well, we can still win a championship now, but it doesn't mean I have to give up my future to get to that championship. I'm going to be honest, this is the most difficult sport for me. To part ways with
assets.
Because you and I talk about it all the time, whether it's second-round draft picks in the NBA, whether it's first-round draft picks in the NFL, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's young guys on the NBA roster, and people get an uproar about moving on from them for a vet or for a known commodity. And I'm like, no, you do the sure thing. If it means getting Luis Robert or Cody Bellinger at the deadline to put him out in center field or left field and move someone to center field,
you're doing it.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Here's the issue, though. Robert is here for 2 more years after this. I believe, I could be wrong. I don't know if there's two things I've seen that that contradict themselves when it comes to Cody Bellinger. I've seen that Cody Bellinger is a free agent after this year, which would mean, are you giving up Aiden Miller and other prospects for a half-year rental of Cody Bellinger?
Right.
I've also seen that he's due a lot of money next year.
Yeah.
I mean, that part doesn't bother me. It's not my money. If they trade for him, they know he's getting a lot of money. They're okay with giving him a lot of money. That money part has nothing to do with me. I don't care. You make the move.
Yeah.
If you are making the move for Cody Bellinger, I want Cody Bellinger really badly.
Yeah.
You have to be certain that he's coming back. What
kind of timeline is Aiden Miller on?
That's the thing, bro. I'm not.
We don't know.
Yeah,
like you're hoping that it's, within the next 2 years or whatever, right? But you don't know. The only downside to
he's like a third baseman / shortstop. Where is he going?
Right.
Where is he going? You look around this infield. Is Alec Bohm, Trey Turner, or Bryson Stott going anywhere in the near future? I mean, obviously, people are gonna have their concerns about Stott right now. Stop, man. Like I don't think we're thinking anything about moving on from Bryson Stott.
Yeah,
so where in this infield is Aiden Miller going in anywhere over the next 8 to 10 years?
Yeah. The only thing that makes it tough, it's one, what is Bellinger's situation, right? You already talked about that. But the other side of it is that I do believe the Phillies can win with the roster that they have. Like, I do believe that if they went into the playoffs fully healthy, they could win the World Series with the roster that they have, but that doesn't mean you sell yourself short if you can make the roster better.
No, I do agree with you.
It's tough.
I do agree with you, but they would by far have the worst outfield in the postseason.
Yeah, and that's where
again,
if you want to make it a for sure.
Marsh can heat up. We know what Rojas can do defensively. So when I say the worst, it's just number wise. Your platoon. If you have the platoon Marsh out against lefties, and you have an inconsistent Nick Castellanos, Johan Rojas, and Christian Pache as your outfield, that's a scary thought in a series against the Diamondback. Oh, the Diamondback flashback.
Trauma
against the Braves or the Dodgers or anything like that. So you do it to improve. You know how I feel versus unknowns versus the proven commodity. You do it 100%.
Get as close to for sure as you can get to,
and you do whatever it takes to win a championship. That's the bottom line.
I do agree,
however,
man.
you are in a sticky situation where you don't want to sell your future, and okay, maybe we win a championship this year, which is the ultimate goal. But then. But that's the thing though, because people keep saying like, oh well, we don't want more, 2013 to 2019 Phillies, 2020 Phillies, right? Like that was a down time, brother. Trey Turner and Bryce Harper are here for the next decade.
Yeah.
JT Realmuto is going to be here. Like all these guys, like you're not anytime soon are you going to have putrid Phillies baseball. So and again. We just did it with who was the catcher we moved on from at the deadline? Hoppy. Remember?
Oh yeah. That was this last year.
But what was the conversation though? Where does Logan O'Hoppe fit in the timeline? He's blocked by JT Realmuto. Well, I'll ask you, where does Aiden Miller fit in the timeline? He's an infielder. Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott. Unless Bryson Stott over the next 2 years continues to hit like 240 something or whatever, that's the only opening you potentially see, which I don't foresee happening and I don't want to happen.
And I mean, would you not trade? Like, I know it would suck, but like, would you not trade like 5 years of bad baseball for one ring?
Right.
Like to see this team at the top one time,
right?
Like to see Bryce Harper hold up, whatever trophy it is. You know what I mean? Like to get his ring, like this core, like that's where I'm at. Like if the Sixers suck after Embiid, but he gets a ring, I don't care. Like I really don't care. It will suck in the moment. Obviously, we'll bitch and we'll complain during that span, and we'll want the team and the ownership to figure it out. We'll complain and have unrealistic expectations to figure it out and fix it. But even then, when you look back on the championship that came with that core group, back in the early in the later 2000 through 2010s. Do you regret it? Like, do you really? If you got a ring out of it,
Right.
like I don't know, man. I just
I agree, man. I
I
agree.
think we go in right now. This is the era that you are gonna have the best chance to win. With guys like Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, JT, Kyle Schwarber, like these guys that we have right now, this is it. Whether this is it for the next 5 years, that's fine with me. Like, let's figure it out and let's put the best team out there. So,
I agree, man.
yeah, man, to your point, I think even when you think about it from that longevity standpoint, you gotta go get it today because you can't worry about tomorrow with a team of this caliber, man. This is the best team in the MLB right now. So why not make it better if you can? I think that's like the very almost basic way to look at it in a sense. Is you got to do what you can do to win right now.
Something's coming down the pipe. So
yeah,
people
something's
are gonna like
happen.
it. They're gonna love it. They're gonna hate it. I don't know. But I'm gonna.
How do you feel if you have to give up a prospect like Aiden Miller, for example? We'll just use him as the rolling example here.
Yeah.
If you have to give him up for a Bellinger, for Luis Robert, yeah. Or you can get a Jazz Chisholm without giving up that prospect. Which way would you go in that sense? Is Jazz Chisholm still that much of an upgrade over what you have? Right. Or would you just be more willing to go all in, go for the big prospect there? Not prospect, but
I mean, I want Belly or Robert. I think
you want the for sure thing.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Jazz is hitting 258 this year. He's got 18 stolen bases, 11 homers, 41 RBIs, and 333 at bats. I mean, he's right around. It's actually a career high for him. Basically, he's right at 250 the year before, 254 the year before that, 248 the year before that. So he's always been around a 250 hitter. He's exceeding that right now this year. I looked it up. Cody was hitting what's he hitting this year? 265 for Cody Bellinger. Luis Robert, we know the power stats. Luis Robert.
Yeah. He's at 224, I think.
Yeah, 224, but
10 homers.
Yeah, so but we just know that the power is ridiculous, and he's heating up on a bad team. But he's only had 143 at bats, so he's only played in 38 games this year. That's why. So,
and he's only what 26, I believe.
He's 26. I think he has 2 more years of control after this. So that's where a guy like him becomes very interesting. But you do have the competitive issues, the mindset issues. I don't know if you saw the clip of him. They had his team, the White Sox, lost the game because he caught a fly ball in center field. They had bases loaded, runner was on third, and he just didn't even attempt to throw it home. Like, not that he would have gotten the guy, but like he just held on to the ball and like the game ended off a routine pop up. So there were people talking about it, his character, his mindset, his work ethic, everything like that. But
you just have to hope that would change.
The power in this lineup would be extraordinary to add him. But
Phillies will do their research on that, like going into that. Like, they're not going to make a huge move like that and not know like the character of the player that they're going to get. And winning changes everything, man. When you put in an environment where you can actually go out.
Cody Bellinger is kind of the dream for me.
But is he the most expensive? You would say, yeah.
So we'll see, man. But with
any of them are an upgrade at the end of the day.
No, absolutely.
That's the big thing.
Absolutely. There's other guys too. There's guys like Tyler Ward out in LA who's hitting for big power numbers this year. You can get him cheaper than the other guys as well. So they're going to upgrade the outfield. They're going to upgrade center field. It's been spoken about for the last month and a half. It's their biggest key, their biggest need to them, and he's going to get it done. So how big the move is, what the approach is, we'll see. But we're going on an hour and a half here. I think that's going to do it. Again,
I wanted to ask you something. I did want to ask you the back tightness with Zach Wheeler. Any worries there?
No, only because that can kind of be handled pretty easily. And it was said, Rob said after his game that he's expected to make his next start. It was kind of precautionary. I guess he felt something. And then he was like, you know what, we're up. My whole thing is
he did sit for a long time during one of those innings.
If it's a 1-0 ball game, maybe he goes back out there, but it's a 9-1 ball game, 8-1 ball game at that point. Not necessary to throw him back out there. So
they get it done tonight.
I'm not about it. Who's on the mound? Sanchez,
yeah. Versus Gavin Stone.
Gavin Stone is better than Bobby Miller.
9-2, 3.03 ERA.
Man, it's funny. I'm hopeful for one. What's weird about me, Scotty? You know who I still have a hard time being confident in?
Who's that?
The June pitcher of the month. And that's Christopher Sanchez. I still get nervous. Like, bro, he's been so consistently good all year long.
It's like, when is he going to have a little bit of like a
It's not. It's just, I still, for some reason, I don't view him like I should. I don't watch him step on the mound and feel comfortable every night. And then I look at the top of this order and I go, man, he's pitching to Ohtani, Freddie, Will Smith. But then he goes out and delivers 6 innings, 2 earned, and like, he's been so locked down all year. I'm going to have to start buying in. I love it. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not that I do not like Christopher Sanchez or I fear when he's on the mound. I'm just not as comfortable as the numbers state I should be.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you tell me he's on the mound versus the Dodgers, and I go, I just don't know. Like, in the back of my mind, I go, that could be 6 runs in 4 innings. But
just get one of the next 2.
Right. It could also be 2 runs in 6 innings. I don't know. So, I need to start.
Phillies are favored.
What's the odds?
-140.
God damn.
Yeah. Dodgers are plus money, plus 120.
I mean, dude, they opened at like -148 yesterday. That was with Wheeler on the mound.
Yeah.
That was with Wheeler on the mound and Bobby Miller on the mound for the Dodgers. Like, that pitching matchup was so much more drastic than the one we have on the mound tonight. So that's a weird line. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's pushing me to stay away from the Phillies. I don't like that. I don't like that value at all.
Yeah.
So I will not be betting on the Phillies.
The over is at 9.5.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I think that's part of it. They just think we're gonna smash again.
Right, tonight. Which doesn't help me, because then if you go Phillies team total, they're probably sitting at 5.5.
Yeah, 5.5.
Or 4.5, but it's like -180. Like, no. So
yeah, that's rough.
The books are killing me today as a Phillies fan, but I'll figure something out. What's
it going to be with Nola tomorrow?
I know. Dominant in Atlanta, though, bro. But yeah, so I did see Glasnow went on the IL last night for the Dodgers, so I don't even know who they have on the mound tomorrow versus
Knack. Not familiar with his game.
Not familiar with his work, brother. So
Landon Knack.
Landon, welcome to Philly, Landon.
Yeah. So maybe that's the W, right? Like, I don't know. We'll see.
This was
maybe
like the NLCS or NLDS. You know what you'd be hearing every time he's on the mound? Landon. Over and over again. Landon Knack, welcome to CBP, brother. Hope tomorrow. But we're over an hour and a half now.
Yes, sir.
So that's going to wrap it up. Guys, we're hopeful, knock on wood, some personal things came up last night. That's why we were unable to do our Sixers offseason special with Brock Landis. We're hoping, going to talk to him a little bit to get into it tonight. 5:15, 5:30 p.m. right here on the DSM Philadelphia YouTube channel. We'll be talking with Brock for a while about Paul George, Caleb Martin, Daryl Morey, Jared McCain, and the rest of this 76ers offseason and what they can do to fill out the margins for the rest of the roster. So stay tuned for that. For myself, for Scotty, 55 of you watching right now. If you are watching over on Twitter, make sure to go over to the YouTube channel. I'll say it again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're helping us out. You're helping yourself out because it's the best spot to watch the show. You can get your comments, your questions posted up on the screen with us. We cannot see them if you're watching on Twitter right now. So make sure, subscribe, help us out, help yourself out, and have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Peace, everybody. Have a good one.